Well, is everyone here first yet?
Yes.
Yes.
I am
Yep.
here.
Good. Good. And we're recording.
That we are.
Alrighty. Welcome back, ladies and gents, to Installation-00, Session 2, Part 2. And we begin again in the Dokrai, as Arsharam and Hunter are about to begin their sparring session. Now, for the sake of making the audience understand what's going on, these sparring sessions will be best of 5 dice rolls, each one at the beginning, preliminary, middle, and penultimate, and then end of the fight. Best of 5 essentially wins. And because Arsharam is a prelate, he will get to choose one round where he gets a plus 40% chance to victory in each of the fights with Hunter and with Alf. All right. Arsharam, you are squaring off with this demon, this Spartan 3, you believe was said. He comes up to about your mid-chest in height, and he stands 5 meters away from you, near the other end of the circular platform. And Hunter?
May I inquire as to his armament?
He is wearing... He doesn't appear to have any weapons on him, and neither do you, for the sake of sparring. He has just armor. Although you've been told that human armor systems are incredibly advanced, so you assume there's more to him than meets the eye. He's taller than the other 2 humans, Mike and Kevin, so you're not quite certain what to make of him.
Arsharam has never actually engaged a demon in flat combat. The closest he has ever seen to such things is on deployments for assassination. He has occasionally skirted the edge of one in combat, and he has noted their lethal proficiency with ranged weapons to the point where almost every single one has noticed and fired upon him. With this said, he has no idea how they fight in melee. So his first action will be to stay still, try to bait a charge, and then hope to create distance in order to ascertain the 3 stages of enemy response: how he approaches, how he engages, and how he reacts to being foiled, if he is.
I was going to then ask, yeah. Thank you for that. I was going to ask both of you how each of you approach the start of this. How does Hunter approach this?
Hunter is on the other side, fists up, getting ready to just, get the green light that the match has begun. His stance indicates that he's going to charge the first instance he gets the green light, but he has planned to fake out a charge, try to make him flinch and create an opening for him to really get stuck in.
So Arsharam is zen, calm, collected, waiting and scanning, ready to analyze his opponent, and Hunter is ready to rush in there and get work done, yes?
Not really rush. Again, his strategy is going to make him flinch, make him think that he's going to charge the instant the match begins.
I see.
Yeah.
All right. Just as this is starting, Zapata strolls into the room. And you see a prelate and one of the demons squaring off in the center. By the way, audience, Sergeant Tad decided to join us finally. In any case, as we begin, Arsharam, you feel your heart beginning to beat faster and faster. You feel your vision shrink inward and focus and sharpen. There is silence. And Rako, being the supervisor of this bout, you bark the command to begin.
The battle may commence when both parties are ready.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Acknowledged.
As it starts, Hunter, you suddenly rush forward. And Arsharam, you are shocked at the speed of this person. You watched the simulation before, but it did not do this justice. And before you even think you're ready, the Spartan before you is already halfway across the arena, and you dart to the side out of instinct. And Hunter, you stop. You did what you wanted to do. And as Arsharam is trying to evade whatever charge was coming, you redirect and charge him again. And Arsharam, you're forced to block as Hunter launches himself towards you with a flying kick, and it's not as strong as you thought it would be. You have to sort of shuffle your feet a bit and ground yourself, because it certainly does shove you backward, but you realize, oh wait, he's not quite that strong as I thought. How do the both of you then approach the next round?
Hunter will this time take up a defensive stance, just in case the prelate tries to take a page out of his book.
Very well. Asheram now believes that the Spartan is far faster than he could have anticipated and not as strong as he had feared. His next step then is to attempt aggression. Though his enemy will probably take a defensive stance, he hopes that moving into point-blank range and attempting a grapple will let him feel out the limits of the enemy's true strength one way or another before he can overcommit to a proper striking offensive.
All right. The moment your kick is blocked... Sorry. The moment your kick is blocked, Hunter, you pull back, you rechamber your leg and shuffle backward into a defensive stance, and Arsharam, recalculating your odds against his opponent, you lunge forward, and this time, Hunter, this thing is a lot faster than you thought he would be. And Arsharam, you dart in, and you feint an overhead punch, but you feint the overhead punch, and you feint the overhead, and as Hunter is going to block it, you then halt the overhead and reach with your other hand and grab at you lean down, grab at the Spartan's ankle, his leg, and you yank upward. Hunter, your vision spins and you're completely caught off guard. You had no idea this guy was this fast, and he's a lot stronger than he looks. So you're dangling upside down, but you manage to sort of squirm and kick, although you don't feel the kick hit anything, and Arsharam, you manage to dodge the strike. Although as Hunter plants his feet on the floor again, you then grab the Spartan's arm and wrench it behind his back. And you have his arm pinned there. How then do you both proceed?
How close is his head to mine?
It's more or less right above it.
Okay. My other arm's free, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, he's going to try and elbow him in the side of the head and focus on an overall just brutal, just an all-around non-stop offensive from here on out. But going to try to aim for what he can guess are weak spots on the body, or at least weak spots that he knows on the human body, the joints, waist, neck, that sort of stuff.
Arsharam?
Ordinarily, were this live combat, Arsham would immediately attempt to go for a kill shot with his hard light gauntlet, but denied that method, he understands that he has neither the strength nor the physicality to overpower the Spartan. However, this is a spar, and in order to fully understand his enemy, he must weather the storm. So despite his instincts begging him to disengage and find distance, he stays where he is and prepares to receive the fury of his opponent.
Right, well, actually, Arsharam, being able to wrench this demon's arm behind his back, you do get the sense that you are stronger than him. However, by this point, you're beginning to feel the fire in your veins starting to subside, and your vision starting to blur slightly. So you realize you don't have much time left, and so I apologize. What was your strategy for this round again?
My strategy for this round was Arsham isn't actually treating this as a fight as such. He hasn't come into this to win. He's come into it to learn. So under that presumption, he's going to try and hold position, maintain the grapple for as long as possible, and see what his opponent does to him.
All right, so Hunter's going all out, pulling out all the stops on an offensive, and Arsharam is seeing what happens and trying to weather the storm. All right, so Hunter, you manage to get your free arm up, and you manage to fling it backward and strike at your opponent's head. Arsharam, you feel his fist smack into the front of your helmet, but you manage to hold firm, although the Spartan then tries, repeatedly elbowing you in the gut and the chest, and it slams into your armor, and it does hurt when his elbow hits your gut, as the armor plating is less thick there, although it doesn't quite do much. And Hunter, you manage to just about wrench your other arm free, and you spin around and lunge at this opponent of yours. And you throw this series of punches and kicks, a jab at the prelate's gut, a overhead toward, as best you can manage, you sort of jump up and try to punch this guy in the chin. And Arsharam, you are dodging. You are forced to dodge as you feel your stamina beginning to fade. So you lean back, step out of the way, shuffle to either side, as this Spartan, who isn't slowing down and doesn't appear to be weakening in the slightest, starts raining this assault upon you. And how do you both proceed?
Hunter is going to, again, another flinch, going to make him think he's going to just rush in, wait for Australian to dodge, and then immediately direct another barrage of attacks to wherever he's going to dodge to.
Arshram has a similar plan. He knows that he no longer has the stamina to hold out, so he is going to jump backwards and then immediately reverse direction and charge forwards. Hopefully, before he reaches the enemy, he will then jump up using his anti-gravity belt and strike from above using aerial mobility he knows the Spartan cannot match. He's looking to see if he could get a headshot in that hopefully, had he his full combat array, could perhaps land a killing blow.
All right. Damn. Arshram, your tactic works. Hunter, the fight sort of pauses for a moment. After your initial barrage of attacks, the prelate gains some distance from you, as some space, and there's a brief pause, a beat passes. Hunter, you feel every instinct in you sort of screaming to finish the kill, but you're not quite. You have your tactics. You know what to do. So you attempt to bait out your opponent again. You rush forward to try to psych out your opponent. But Ashram, you're a bit faster. You also feint. You use your maneuvering thrusters. You fling yourself backwards initially, just as your opponent tries to fake you out again. But then you fly up. You jump with all the strength you have left in your legs, and you wind up a quarter of the way toward the ceiling. And Hunter, you find yourself having to crane your neck and look upwards as the prelate then falls atop you. And Arshram, as you come down to the floor, you throw as powerful a kick as you possibly can into the back of the Spartan's helmet. And it lands. And Hunter, your head swims. You are... and your vision blurs. Your body just completely goes slightly limp for an instant. And then by the time you reorient, you find yourself on your back with Arshram standing over you. And around his raised fist is a hard light gauntlet with a blade at its tip.
He's going to try to sweep kick, seeing the hard light gauntlet. Now he's in fight or flight.
For what it's worth, Arshram is not used to such tactics under spars, so he totally wouldn't expect anything like that.
Yeah, sweep kick followed by another kick with both his legs to Ashram's chest.
Rako, if need be, will come in and break up the fight if he thinks it's going a little bit too far.
You notice, Rako, and everyone else watching, that if the prelate wanted to end it right then and there, he could have, probably, maybe. But you see the prelate sort of holding back his arm, just poised to strike, but not really. And so, final roll. Hunter, you shift your body, twist your waist, and kick with all your might. And Arshram, you feel both of your legs just sweep out from under you, and you land on your back, as Hunter then proceeds to jump onto you and have you pinned, and starts trying to punch you in the face. And by this point, you feel your stamina leaving you, and
Be right back.
Be right back, Rako.
right, and it's
Coming, Dad.
you know that this is over. Do you?
I yield.
All right. Okay. Fight 1. A win for Hunter.
Hoorah!
A good fight, Spartan.
Likewise.
Yeah, Arsharam. From this, you surmise that these demons, or at least this particular demon, his stamina is obviously far greater than yours, but that you at least have a decisive advantage at the beginning of a fight when your stamina is fresh. So you surmise that if you had the element of surprise, you probably could kill this demon.
However, what Arsharam would find most dangerous about the demon is not its speed or strength or armor. It was the fact that down on its back, with a blade poised to end it, its first thought was to immediately destroy what was in front of it. That sort of killing intent is rare in Arsharam's experience, for most of his targets crumble when faced with the prospect of death.
So, we move on. Hunter, you step off of the central... I keep calling it platform. It's not really a platform. It's just a circular area. You step off of that and you realize, oh shit, my arm's kind of bruised, but whatever. You just sort of... You cross your arms and watch the next fight about to unfold. Arsharam, you have to take like 10 minutes just to recollect yourself and,
Recharge.
The price of burning bright is that one must burn quickly.
All right. And now the next fight. Alf.
I'm gonna clear my bowl. Be right back.
All right. Alf, it's your turn to fight the prelate.
Joy.
All right. So, the two of you square off, as Arsharam did with the Spartan 3. Arsharam, this demon is a lot closer to your height. He's a head shorter than you, but he's a lot bigger than the last demon, a lot wider in the shoulders, and you can only surmise, like, at least 3 times as heavy. So you assume that this is going to be more difficult.
And I'm back.
Hello.
Understood.
Alf,
Are we presenting plans?
in a moment. Alf, from watching...
1 second.
1 second for what?
I was coughing my lungs out. I couldn't hear.
All right, then. Ready?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, Alf, from watching the prelate fight your, we'll say nephew, basically, we'll say Hunter's essentially your nephew, given that Kurt trained the Spartan 3s. Watching the prelate fight, you sort of guess that the prelate, you get the inkling that the prelate has a bit of a stamina issue, but you're pretty certain that he's more or less on par with you, at least to begin with. And so, as you're both squaring off, how do you both approach the beginning of the fight?
I'll go first. So this demon looks more physically opposing than the predecessor. Therefore, grappling and main offense are out. Arsharam will instead This time he will be the one to charge, and he will strike low in an attempt to sweep his opponent's legs, like was done to him. Should that fail and he manages to detect a counter hit, he will engage his gravity belt so that the impact can push him far farther than would normally be possible, hopefully outside the demon's chasing range.
Alf, how do you approach this?
Hmm. I think I'm as well, but not at top speed to disguise it, my top speed, and try to
Try to what?
grapple.
So if I'm understanding right, you're trying to sort of put forward the impression that you're slower than you actually are in an attempt to get your opponent into a grappling.
Yee.
All right then. Arsharam, once more, you feel your heart beginning to thud louder and louder. Your vision focuses in once more, though slightly less intensely than the first time, though you are fairly certain that you should be pretty much as potent as you were at the start of the last fight. And the fight begins on Rako's signal.
Combatants, when both are ready, you may start the combat. The combat ends when one of you yields or one of you is rendered unconscious.
And so you both begin to move. Moving to either side. Alf, you shuffle to your left, hands up, ready. And Arsharam, you do the same to your right, though bit more open, less hunched over a stance. And Alf, you put into place your plan. You feint an advance, you feint a rush, not nearly as fast as you could be. Arsharam, you also rush forward at your full speed, and Alf, that you weren't expecting that. And again, you saw him fighting Hunter. You thought you understood his speed, but apparently it's just different when you're faced with it personally. So, Arsharam, you rush forward and dive and swing both your legs against the demons, and you succeed in knocking his legs out from under him, but you notice, ow, that really hurt your legs. That really hurt your shins. He is very, very heavy. But fortunately, you are able to stomach the pain, and you quickly get up to your feet as the Spartan is only just starting to stand back up. And how do you both then proceed?
So Arsharam probably goes first because of how things have played out. He is immediately going to try and jump over the Spartan's body to beside the head and kneel down for an attempt for a pulled finisher. Again, try and ignite the blade and hold it in a killing stroke. Because last time he schemed too much. He is going to attempt the simplest method of execution. Should the opponent be ready for him, his plan remains the same. Engage anti-gravity belt and ride the momentum of the attack to safety.
Alf?
Still thinking.
Okay.
Spartan time kicks in and the world slows down.
I believe
Ah, yes, of course. Spartan time, yes.
It's like the Sherlock Holmes boxing scene.
This mustn't register an
The
emotional.
demon has been discombobulated.
So I've never really been good with combat situations and like thinking of how one would do them. So this is kind of hard for me to think.
If you want, I can just come up with something myself.
Yeah, I'd prefer that because I gotta get more experience on that.
All right, then.
I could provide if you want.
That'll be fine. All right.
Would it be any good, boss?
Yes.
In any case, Arsharam, you enact your next plan. As you have stood up, and as the demon is starting to stand up, you dart backward for a moment, and just as the demon gets to his feet, you rush forward again, although this time, as you're about to come within range of a strike, your thrusters fire to one side as you come around to his right. And Alf, this time you're ready. This time, you turn your head in time with the prelate, and Arsharam, you realize, oh no, as your hard-light blade is swiftly blocked as Alf raises an elbow and knocks it aside, and Arsharam, you just manage to flare your anti-gravity belt as a titanic right cross from the demon just barely misses your chest, and as you fly up and backwards. You surmise that if that had hit you, it would have hurt a lot. How do you both proceed? Well, how does Arsharam proceed now?
Very well. So Arsharam is now beginning to feel the fire recede. He knows that this next round will tip entirely in the demon's favor if he does nothing. So the time for calculated risks is over. It's time to bet all in. He is going to charge again, this time keeping the blade extended in an obvious linear strike. Hopefully, the Spartan, being a very efficient creature, will block it in a very orthodox manner, and he will rely on his blade's ability to deactivate. So, as the Spartan raises to block blade, deactivate it, wait for his fist to move past the guard and reactivate, hopefully inside his guard range, and therefore impossible to block or dodge. He's going to burn his overcharge for this, because he's seen how fast the demon is, and he must extract every last drop of power from his blood in order to make sure this is pulled off.
I see. Plus 40% for you, then. As you trigger the chemical mechanisms in your combat skin, Arsharam, you feel the world slow down. This fiery, it feels like a creature is within your torso, straining to get out, as this fiery sensation thumps through your chest and into your veins all across your body, as you're in the air, and you proceed to then dive downward, raising your hard-light gauntlet's blade to strike the demon. And Alf, you see this coming, of course, and you get ready to block it as it comes towards you. However, Arsharam, your plan works. Just as your blade is about to meet the demon's forearm armor, your gauntlet disappears. Alf, you're caught off guard as then the prelate reactivates it past your arm, just under, as you're raising both to defend yourself, and his arm darts up underneath both of yours and towards your helmet. You just manage to lean your head to one side, and you guess that if the prelate weren't holding back at least a little bit, your skull would have been pierced by a, apparently, you guess it's a plasma blade, but you're not sure if it's a plasma blade. Fortunately though, Alf, you react quickly and you throw yourself backward, jumping backward onto your back and rolling. And Ashram, you're surprised that the demon could move that quickly, but you guess that you shouldn't be, considering he was able to track and counter your last offensive. How do you both proceed?
Well, Arsharam he knows that the second the grace of the Forerunners wears off, he will be defenseless. So it is time to forego offense. He's done what he can, one way or another. He is going to instead project the hard light into a gauntlet to hopefully lessen the impact of the demon's strikes, pull into a defensive stance, and wait for the enemy to come to him.
All right. Ashram, as you activate your hard light gauntlet and flourish and fall into a defensive stance with your gauntlet held in front of you, ready, you see the demon's helmet sort of tilt to one side for an instant. And then, Alf, you just sort of shrug your shoulders a bit and you rush him. Just complete football charge. And Ashram, you weren't quite expecting this. You were expecting a punch or a kick, but the demon just completely tackles you to the floor. And you are only just able to worm your neck and head out of the way as the demon then proceeds to have you pinned and punches down toward your head. And you feel the floor next to where your head was crack very, very loudly. And as the next punch then rains down, you put your hard light gauntlet in the way, and you are just barely able to withstand it. You feel a shock of pain shoot up your arm, and it hurts a lot. Like, a lot, and immediately your arm just feels exhausted, despite the hard light gauntlet taking most of the brunt of the...
Rako will break up this fight, seeming that the Spartan has won this and the prelate is in no real position to keep fighting.
You call it off?
Yeah, Riko will call off. The Spartan has clearly won. As much as he enjoys seeing this weird thing get its ass kicked, he really doesn't want to get yelled at.
All right, you run forward, Rako, and you sort of you shout in your native tongue and not in English, because the urgency of the situation, you forget to use English. But Alf, you realize, oh wait, the fight's over. I thought it was going to last a bit longer, but now you then get off of the prelate, and Arsharam, you suddenly feel very, very tired on the floor.
Such is the price to pay for using the god's grace.
Indeed.
But I have what I came for.
And from that, you would guess that the Spartan is roughly twice as physically, that the Spartan 2, the larger demon, is roughly twice as physically capable as the other one, and you noticed a lot heavier, which is a very distinct advantage. And yes, That's essentially what you glean from that, unless you also have a character-related nugget of information.
In this case, Ashram would think that the Spartan was perfectly ready to, again, forego strategy in favor of overwhelming power, but he is consoled by the fact that were he to have approached this in his preferred manner, he is reasonably confident he could have achieved a mutual kill under the scenario. Being what it is, and his value being immeasurably less than that of a demon, he is satisfied with the result.
Alf, how do you feel about this?
No comment, it seems.
No comment.
Apparently.
Perfect. Timing.
No, well,
Your comment on the fight, buddy?
Mute.
I had someone pop in right when I was at the talk.
Ah. So what would Alf be thinking about the fight you just had?
To watch out for disappearing plasma blades.
Yes, very scary. So, Zapota, Kevin, and Rako, you all saw what happened. What do you all think about what's transpired here? And in fact, Hunter, what do you think about what's happened here?
Takes note that the prelate fights more like a scout or an assassin. Also takes notes of the plasma blade and is currently rubbing the back of his head after getting kicked there. Very not pleasant. And is also going to check up on Alf, make sure he's all 110% good.
He appears to be, yes.
Alright, he's all good. And he's going to assume Ashram's A-okay. He's not going to check on him. He's just going to assume that he's okay. He's probably.
Rako will help the prelate up to his feet, having gained a little tiny bit of a warrior's respect from watching him fight two demons and doing relatively well according to his experience.
Hey, if that had been to the death, I stood decent chances of winning both by surprise assassination.
Yes, you very easily surmised that you would have had a decisive advantage against the smaller demon, and you would have been at least dead even physically with the larger one for at least the beginning of the conflict.
Kevin will
it's less
do his
about the
job.
overall flow of the fight, but more that in both cases, as I understand it, Arshram had an opportunity on both cases to deliver instant death. For Hunter, it was when he was on the floor, and for Alf, it was when he fainted past his guard. Of course, tricks never work twice, so Ashram does fear he might have overplayed his hand.
Kevin will do his job and make sure he's all right.
Who is?
The Spartan.
All right.
Zapata just walks over to Ashram and then just kind of looks down and goes, "Good job." Most of the time he's ever seen Spartans, it's always ended badly for everyone else around him. So he's just like, "Good job for not getting broken in two or something."
Yes.
For Ashram's part, Zapata makes an excellent stable post to lean against as he fights for breath from his exertion.
Indeed. And that will be the end of that scene. And unless it sort of goes on like that, really, the two Spartans continue their routine of simulated target practice in the mornings and then sparring with each other in the evenings. Hunter, you get a lot of respect for this larger Spartan, and you both start talking and about Kurt specifically, as you realize, oh hey, I knew that guy. And you you work together, you work in tandem, you get a feel for one another's capabilities and fighting style, and you feel a lot more prepared, Hunter, especially with the advice that Alf occasionally gives about fighting brutes, mainly being to stay back and far away as much as possible and shoot the limbs and such.
Could I ask for both Alf and Hunter's thoughts on if they talked afterwards after the fight, how they would have gone for the kill immediately, given how Spartans operate?
You just gave Hunter further cause to distrust you.
Well, yeah, but he's asking how you would have, or how Hunter would have gone for the kill if it were a fight for real.
So as I understand it, Spartans will always have a plan, right? So if Alf and Hunter met up afterwards, they would have exchanged the word like prelate, attack from behind, or something like that.
If Hunter had the ability to kill him, just a simple neck snap, move on.
Alf? No comment. Once again.
Busy feeding the dog.
Oh boy, okay. Well, never mind then. We move on from that. As the days are going by, Mike, we return to you. You've been in between your sleeping and going to the quote-unquote chow hall, whatever it's called. You thought you heard someone say its name, but honestly, it's kind of hard to understand half the people on this ship. A bunch of them are the crab people, and they have high-pitched voices. It's not an easy time of it, but you know it as the chow hall. Between going there and sleeping, you spend most of your days either doing the target practice with your concussion rifle or walking around the nature preserve. Although when you're not doing that, you are trying to take every opportunity to figure out how this Covenant technology works. And to that end, in the hallway near where your quarters are, there's this computer built into the wall. You see a few of these around the ship, just in random places. You assume that they're for maintenance and or just custodial duties. It's unclear. But you go up to one of those computers and you start trying to figure it out. And it takes a bit. It's kind of like a Sudoku puzzle. You have to kind of figure out precisely what you're looking at. But when you do, you find it's rather intuitive. And not that difficult, really. You manage to figure out how to open and close a nearby door in the hallway, and how to open and close the door to your quarters, and how to lock it or unlock it. And you're sort of having that on your side, you take a closer look at your own concussion rifle. And there you run into a roadblock. You realize, wait a second, none of the mechanisms on this thing make any sense. From what you're looking at, this thing seems to defy all physics in general. You have no idea how the hell this works, other than cartridge goes in gun, gun shoots bolts.
Boom, boom.
Yes. You go to... you have to ask where an armory is, where you received your concussion rifle to begin with, and you eventually find that white armored elite from before, and you sort of ask him, hey, could I get some more ammo for this weapon? Or you ask him to explain how it works precisely. And the white armored elite, who introduces himself as Drag Lorconi, I'll type it out here. He sort of shrugs. He doesn't seem to know precisely how these weapons work either. Although he does tell you that he did once learn how they worked back in his studies, but he mostly just uses the assembler to make them if needed. and he's mostly on the ship to just divvy them out to crewmates whenever they need them. So he does you the courtesy of showing you a few other weapons, how they work, and you can tell he's kind of tolerating you, but you don't really care.
Nope.
You're just curious about how the guns work.
Well, basically, Mike surmised his position at this point. He's there to essentially be the mechanic of the group. He's there to be the technical expertise. And if he doesn't know how the fuck half of the shit works, then he's not doing his job. Also, what the fuck else is he gonna do?
This is fair. As this white-armored Drag Lorconi sort of shows you a bunch of the other weapons, you start recognizing certain patterns in many of them, at least in the ones that function in similar ways. You start to see particular patterns in how each gun has the same sorts of components. He pulls up a few blueprints and a few diagrams of the internal workings of each weapon, and you sort of spend some time studying them, and you realize, wow, this stuff is thousands and thousands of years more advanced than anything humanity has. How the hell have we not been wiped out so far?
And then I realized that 99% of the population has been wiped out. And then do the math.
And you then also realize that the only reason you haven't been completely wiped out is because the Covenant had a civil war. So yeah, that's how you spend your time. Zapota, you, if I understand correctly, mostly spend your time just following the humans around, observing as they run through the combat simulator, and at other times you occasionally grab some mineral extract to eat from the replenishment center. But other than that, you don't need to sleep very often, but you do take one chance to sleep roughly halfway through the journey. You sort of fragment into your component legolo, and you sleep for like 9 hours one day. But that's essentially it. What else do you try to do for the journey?
Mainly keep my armor up, repair my cannon if anything goes wrong with it, and just like you said, observing the humans. He's a very one-track minded being. If it isn't fighting, or one of the elites isn't asking him to do something, he doesn't really care much about anything besides maybe going and doing some prayers or something, or just
Prayers,
following
you
say? Being interesting.
God.
Yes, Mike, at one point you have this 600-pound monster just following you around the ship. Each of its footsteps vibrates your legs till jelly, but yeah.
Is it the same for me and Alf? Does he just follow us at some point?
He spends at least a portion of each day just in the Dokrai watching you go through your practice drills.
Hooray.
Yeah,
Never really saying anything unless anyone says to him. He just comes in, watches, looking and listening to anything he hasn't heard before, noting it, and when he's done for the day, he just turns around and leaves. He doesn't talk unless someone tries to talk to him. He was never the most talkative of the two. His brother was the one who would come up to you and talk. He's not that guy.
I'm gonna look for a maintenance bay.
As you try to ask Drag or Rako where that would be, they sort of give you an odd look, and they don't really know what you're talking about. The best they can point you to is the Huragok quarters. And you don't know what that means.
Right. So they don't do maintenance.
Isn't that
so?
As far as you can surmise, you could try going to where they pointed you towards.
I'll go there.
All right. While you're going there, Arshram, you were going to say something about prayer. What with?
Well, Ashram makes it a point of trying to understand the differing religious traditions of every one of the Covenant's member species, but of all of them, he would say he is least versed with those of the Legolo. So, of course, should he find out that Zaputa at any point is praying, he would naturally make it a point to use that as a basis for further interaction.
Would Zapata in any way indicate that he's going to do prayer?
It would be more that he would just kind of either go off into a corner to do it really quick or go back to his quarters. He doesn't really like standing around a lot with people.
So it's conceivable then that Arshram might have spotted Zapata in a corner, sort of kneeling on the floor and muttering.
It probably would, because either A, you would find a giant Legolo somewhere in a corner just kneeling, or continuously walking back to one particular location. So yeah, probably could.
Well, as you arrive at where you were told the Huragok quarters would be, Mike, you sort of... It takes you like 20 minutes to get there, because you quickly surmised that this ship is at least like 4.5, 5 kilometers long, and you end up having to take an elevator, and you have to use this teleporting machine, which felt very weird. You essentially stepped onto this small blue platform. You felt a zap. Your vision went black for a split second, and then you were in a different place of a different part of the ship. That was fucking bizarre. You felt like throwing up after that, but you make your way to where you were told the quote-unquote maintenance bay would be, and when you arrive, you see...
So, before that, you said I saw a flash, I felt sick to my stomach, and then I woke up in a different place. This has not become a habit, because the first time it happened, I lost 27 years.
you have a bit of PTSD after that.
God, no.
But no.
I do a bit of a meme.
What?
Hey you're finally awake.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
You were caught trying to cross the border too, huh?
Anyway. Yeah, no, Mike, as far as you can tell, you were just teleported to a different part of the ship. Teleporters! They have those, apparently. That's an entirely different can of worms as far as physics goes, but you ignore that for the moment and go to where you were told to go. And when you arrive there, you enter this really large, cavernous room. It's not very wide, but it's extremely tall. And it seems to be just... It's like this giant pit, a small... like a canyon, just in the middle of this ship. Very, very narrow. Wide enough for a tank to fit in there, but not much else. And very long, deep, very high ceiling, and a floor that's like 50 feet down. And all around you are the ballsack creatures.
Yeah.
Like the one that healed you from your coma. Except these ones... Except these ones are blue. Bright blue. Glowing, actually. And they're the same size as you, instead of being the size of your torso. They don't pay you much mind.
I've been sent to the hull of the ballsack monsters. Wonderful.
Yes. Indeed. They don't pay you any mind. They're floating around, interacting with these... you guess holographic computers all around, like, every square meter of the walls in this cavernous space. You see a few of them sort of pop out of holes that appear in the walls, carrying what you think are components and like raw material, some of the purple alloy that the ship appears to be made out of. They sort of go around carrying that stuff, but yeah, you don't know what to do here, and none of them are going up to you to talk.
Okay, I'm just going to... Mike would have been in engineering space before. He knows basically not to step in certain areas, stuff like that. So he's just basically going to observe as much as he possibly can.
So you spend a few hours sort of watching, and you notice there's like a few hundred of these creatures here. They don't seem to communicate with each other. Like 2 or 3 of them will occasionally bump into each other and then flail their tentacles at each other in what you assume to be a sign language. I mean, you assume that's what it is, given that the crab guy from 4 days ago did the same thing. And you sort of sit on the floor watching them. You notice there's a chime that goes off every now and again, and when it goes off, a bunch of these creatures will come out of holes that appear in either side of this cavernous chamber, and they'll go to seemingly a compartment, a storage compartment in some other section, and pull out some raw materials, some bunch of cabling, bunch of wires, some sheets of metal, or things like what appear to be batteries. You think they look kind of like batteries, but you can only assume they're not. And that's essentially what you see going down all around the place.
So basically, this is a assembly bay. They don't seem to be working on anything that's actually broken. They don't seem to be doing anything like that. They just seem to be actually in the act of building the things.
Yeah, no, they don't appear to be repairing anything here. You notice that when these creatures float up and retrieve some raw material, they then leave the chamber and go somewhere else. You see a bunch of them leaving and entering this place through various slots in the walls that open up and close behind them. So you would assume that these creatures just use this place as the storage bay for raw materials, and that they then use that material to go and conduct repairs where needed in the ship.
Okay. All right. So I'm just going to observe as much as I possibly can. I might follow some of them to see what they do. Just basically seeing how things work. If they object, I'm going to leave.
Oh, right.
But I'm going to stay out of the way as much as possible. Like I said, Mike's an engineer. He knows where not to press too hard.
With that, I'm going to go to the bathroom very quickly. I apologize, but talk amongst yourself for like 2 minutes or something.
Talking amongst yourselves. This is a dangerous prospect.
Yes, it is, and I'm very aware of that, but I need to go. For 2 minutes, I'll be back.
Otto does not talk. On his training.
Rabble.
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 Rabble. Rabble.
Rabble.
Just say rabble until Arco comes back and confuse the fuck out of him.
Do it.
Rabble.
So before you confuse Arco, could you please render me not confused?
Just
Okay.
join in.
It's a meme from South Park, a show where when people would sit there and discuss things with each other, if somebody says something contentious, instead of like trying to do dialogue, everybody would just start yelling rabble, rabble, rabble.
Yeah.
Rabble, rabble, rabble,
Wait, stop. Arco has taken us to him, to the pooper.
Boss,
So
please tell me.
therefore, we must sing him a song.
Oh no.
Of his magical realm. I know.
Arco, have you dropped a douche yet? You've got to take a shit.
Oh my god.
Please tell me you are
You told
recording.
us. You told us to talk some more. Close the door and remember air freshener. You're going for one plop, not two or three. Now stop laughing and focus. Do you want to drop a deuce? You some goddamn Febreze, you animal.
Oh, you're awful.
Oh, bringing the boss is the best goddamn decision we could have fucking made.
Oh, my cheeks hurt. It feels like I'm gonna vomit.
Are you done dropping a shit yet? Am I making Hardy to focus? Remember to wipe back the fourth, or your balls will be covered in bullshit. Do you want
Ah, yes, toilet humor. Truly for the highest of ground and mightiest of intellect.
Exactly.
Oh god, there are tears. Oh.
Oi,
For
oi, oi,
the
oi, oi, what's
first-
going on here?
For the first time in forever, Arco's not full of shit. For the
As you
first
can see,
time
the
in
enlightenment
forever, he dropped a pound of it.
Oh my god.
Ah, shut the fuck up.
I got a question.
The
Boss.
best part is this is going on the fucking internet.
Oh, it's
For
great.
the first time in forever,
No.
it's time to end the bit.
No.
Yes, please.
Oh, dear Jesus.
All right, let's get back into this.
I hurt my own head.
Okay.
It's never a good idea, Arco, to leave us by ourselves. It will immediately devolve into bullshit.
I
You should
know.
know this.
In any case, Mike, as you're observing these creatures, it doesn't take long for you to see a familiar face.
Ah.
It is the same creature that healed you to begin with.
Ah, Senor Dickbag, hello.
Yes, this creature, once again, he comes out of a hole in the wall high above, like 50 feet up, and the moment he sees you, he floats straight on downward, and whistling what seems to be a happy show tune as he goes. You're not quite sure what it means, but you assume it's happy to see you.
Ah, okay. You wave. I don't know what else to do.
It's sort of, you see it like stare at your hand a bit, and it's sort of, you notice it's not glowing like all the other things, and it's bright green, and only one of its tentacles is glowing. At the tip of it, it's, you would guess it's some sort of flashlight, and yeah, it sort of comes close to you and seems to scan you again like it had before. What do you do?
Consider this thing woke me up from a coma. I don't do what I would initially do when I woke up the last time and assume karate stance. I'm not going to do that. Just going to, yeah, how you doing?
It doesn't seem to respond. Just after a few moments of scanning you again, it seems to make a happy whistle, and then it turns around and begins flying away.
Oh, well, at least it's happy. Yeah.
Yes. And with that, at that point, you decide to follow a few of the creatures. Most of them leave the chamber through holes in the walls, and you obviously can't follow them through there. But at least one of them does five through, because there's two doors to this chamber, and both of them are on opposite ends of this cavern thing, this cavernous, canyon-like chamber connected by a bridge, over the chasm. So one of the creatures drags a large chunk of this purple alloy, and it flies through the far door. So you get up and chase after it, because of course you want to see what it's going to do. You wind up following it through like 10 minutes of hallways, and as it goes, a bunch of the other creatures around the ship, the elites, you've been told they're called, and grunts, they get out of the way from the creature's path as you then follow it. And eventually, you follow the creature to a abandoned hallway, it seems. The lighting doesn't seem to be turned on. There's just red emergency lights, you think. And the creature floats down this hall and comes to a damaged portion of walling. It's exposed. There's pipes there. There's pipes behind the wall paneling. The creature sets down the chunk of alloy on the floor, and you see it just insert its tentacles into a hole in a pipe. It's leaking this bright blue fluid. You see it dive its tentacles in there, and within a few seconds, the hole's patched up. And you have no idea how the hell it does that. Where there was a hole, there isn't one now. And before you can even process what you've just seen, the creature lifts up that giant chunk of purple alloy, shoves it into place on the exposed part of the wall, and around the outline of the alloy chunk, it sort of fiddles its tentacles, and as it goes, it seems to solder them together, but there's no heat, there's no light. It just, wherever its tentacles pass, it just completely seamlessly cinches together, and you have no idea how the hell it's doing that.
Can you give me a roll? Because I think I do. Like, I think I myself have an idea. I'm just wondering if he would be able to piece this together.
All right. I'm feeling nice since you have an engineering background. I'll say it takes you like 5 minutes of watching this thing work, but you do eventually get an idea of what it's doing.
All right. So the alloy must be, it must be something that its species created, and it reacts to certain stimuli from that species. Am I hitting in the ballpark here?
That is a reasonable assumption for you to make.
Okay, so their entire technology is based around this species, this one particular species, and the alloys and metals that they make are alloyed specifically for that species to be used by it. And their biological inputs somehow interface directly with it, the same way a human would turn like a nut or a bolt or a screwdriver. These things essentially do the same thing, but at a more biological level.
That is the most conservative estimate you can make. It's actually not true, but we're just going to go ahead and say that's what Mike surmises.
Yep, that's what he surmises.
All right, there you go. Okay. Arsharam, as you're milling about the ship one day, after having just observed the Spartans in their combat simulations once more, about 5 days in, you just finished helping an Ungoy transport crates of plasma grenades to the hangar bay. It took you 30 minutes, although it would have taken the Ungoy like 2 hours to get it done by himself, so you're glad to help him.
Service done to others is service done to one's own spirit.
Indeed. Indeed. And just as you finish that, and you make your way back to the Dokrai to see if the humans are having any interesting conversations there. When you enter the Dokrai, you see Zapota in one corner of the room, sort of down on one knee, with both arms pressed to the ground. And you're not quite sure what he's doing at first, but as you walk over to him, you feel it before you hear it, the closer you get. And you don't understand a word of it. It's evidently in the Lekgolo native language. But given the repetitive and rhythmic nature of the sounds, you surmise that it's some sort of poem or prayer.
Thank you so much.
I see. Well, in that case, he is of the Maglet Golo, so perhaps the direct approach would be best. Simply walk up to about 5 feet away from him and ask directly, "My friend, what is it that you beseech the gods for?"
Zapata, you had been reciting a prayer for, well, it's one of the older prayers that your species has back in... You spent a short amount of time on Te, or the Rings of Te. This is one of the few older prayers that you remember. It's essentially a prayer for clarity and for inner peace. Because, well, that day in particular, a second of your dorsal spines has fallen off, and the second of your bondworms has shriveled up and died, and it sort of brought back bad memories, so you're praying for some peace, really.
I just, I don't really move. I can see him. I just say, peace. Real low.
Peace.
This is faintly amusing to Ashram. Here is a Maglet Golo, a war configuration of his species, upon a warship sailing to war, and he prays of peace. So, the next question to ask would then be, peace for whom, mighty hunter? For yourself? For another?
That kind of gets him to kind of lean his head a little bit to the left. And he just doesn't say anything. He's just looking at him.
Then in that case, since he has the hunter's attention, Ashram will make his offer. Come, join me. Use your considerable might in service to the denizens of this ship. Prayer need not be performed stationary. I think you will find there is much peace to be found in altruistic service.
Zapata, that sounds vaguely similar to a few of the religious practices your people have on your homeworld, although you've never heard of it being extended toward other species. You've mostly heard of it being in terms of, helping another Gestalt gather food for their young as they're about to hatch. And yeah, that's the only basis you have for understanding the suggestion. Although you do know that there were a bunch of charity organizations on High Charity. Huh, lol.
Interesting. He just kind of stands up, stares at him, and just kind of does a move with his arm, with his right arm, with his cannon. That's basically lead on then. Because he doesn't know what any of this is. He's only heard of it a little bit on his own planet. So it's just like, hey, it's different, and I like different. That's his thing. He likes discovering new things.
Do you say it as much, or do you just silently face that?
Zapata.
It's more just a move of him looking at him and just basically doing a gesture of lead on. He doesn't speak often, so he basically gets his point across with his body.
So in this case, Arsham knows that the hunter is accepted, but he does not know specifically its preferences. He thinks for a moment, trying to offhandedly come up with a task that would be worth a hunter's brawn. And the first thing that comes to mind would be aiding the sacred engineers in moving the vast quantities of alloy and other material that they require to effect repairs upon the ship. For that is all he can think of that would be heavy enough to test a hunter's strength. On the other hand, the hunter may be displeased were he to suggest something on his own. So before giving forth his idea, he simply turns to Zapata and says, "Have you any preference, Zapata?"
He just nods his head left and right, just like, no.
You do sort of... It does occur to you, Arsharam, that Huragok tend to become very ornery and miffed when you try to interfere in any task they do. And B, you do remember that there are actually a bunch of people in the hangar bay moving supplies onto ships or doing maintenance on vehicles, and a lot of those vehicles are very heavy, so you would guess that Zapata could help with that.
Perfect. Upon second thought, interaction with others is the perfect balm for a troubled soul. To the hangar we go. Is anybody else there when we arrive? That is, any of the player characters.
I don't know. Rako, Alf, and Hunter would be in the Dokrai.
Yeah.
Kevin, Mike, would you be in the hangar bay for any reason?
Kevin has set up a small distillery trying to make alien moonshine.
Basically, Mike at this point is just trying to find something to latch onto at this place. So he's watching the things work, because that's the only place that he was told that they did maintenance.
You understand them to be called engineers.
Yeah. So the ball sack creatures are called engineers. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. We're learning.
Yes.
So basically, unless the thing let him buy that, he's just going to continue to observe and try to draw conclusions.
You continue to do that. Arshram and Zapata, you go to the hangar bay, and of course there's hundreds of people there. Ungoi all over the place doing sort of... They're menially moving crates of supplies onto ships, onto liches, scarabs, dropships, spirits, ghosts, phantoms. And in particular, Arshram, you spot that there's a bunch of revenants, like revenant mini tanks, those things from Reach. There's a bunch of those, and they've all been flipped upside down somehow. And you spot a phantom dropship sort of sitting on the ground with a portion of its upper hull damaged. You can only surmise there was an accident with the phantom having knocked over a bunch of those revenants and flipped them. So you suggest to Zapata that he help the 2 to 3 Sanghili who are on the situation flip the revenants right side up, and he does that. Right?
Seems perfectly fine. Is there any specific basis to interaction then?
Is there?
Not from
Well, the
Zapata.
whole reason why Arshram brought Zapata along was because he personally always feels great fulfillment when helping others, and he assumed, perhaps rightly, perhaps wrongly, that Zapata would feel the same. Does he?
Zapata's just more confused than anything because he basically just drug him in here and now he's helping a bunch of random Sin Healy turn over vehicles that somehow got turned over. He doesn't know what he's supposed to get out of any of this. He's just, well, okay, might as well help out. Why not? Don't know what I'm supposed to get out of this, but sure.
May as well. So, you spend a few hours doing that, Arsharam and Zapata. It's not clear to you, Arsharam, whether this is helping at all, but, you know, you're helping out around the hangar bay. There's... In fact, one of the scarabs has a dent in the carapace armor of its leg. So you have Zapata sort of punch the dent back into shape at one point. But yeah, you're both helping around the hangar bay for a bit. But yeah, nothing in particular happens. And it's rather uneventful.
The only other thing I'd add would be that Arsham would probably point out the multitude of Ungoi and say, well, look at how these Ungoi work tirelessly for the good of the ship, and they exemplify the highest ideals of the Covenant.
Zapata, you don't know how true that is, because, well, most of your time in the Covenant has been spent fighting the Human Covenant War.
It also doesn't help that he's always... Every time he's fought, he's always seen the Ungoi either get thrown around, blow themselves up, or somehow take 3 hours to do something he could take in 3 minutes. So he's just kind of like, yeah, whatever. He doesn't say anything. He just kind of nods along, just like, okay. I still don't know what I'm supposed to be getting out of this, but sure.
Right. Kevin, as for your moonshine expedition venture, you managed to collect a bunch of fruits from what you recognize to be the chow hall. You tried asking the cooks or servants in there whether the fruits were alcoholic, whether they were drug-like, and none of them had a straight answer for you, really. So you just sort of took a bunch of those fruits, got some water, and you used a bit of the alcohol, the rubbing alcohol from your medical pack, and you mixed that a bit with some of the water from the chow hall. You threw the fruits in there, and you just tried to try and see if you could get the fruit to ferment. At one point, you got a cable from... You don't even remember where you got the cable, but there's a section of cable you grabbed from somewhere and tried to mash the fruit into a slurry in the water. And you're essentially using just a hole in the ground
What's that,
to
baby?
try and make this moonshine. It's not working. You spend a day and a half trying to see if it will ferment. It doesn't. It's a waste of time.
Arca. Real quick, Hunter will break from his routine, understanding what Mike has been through, and feeling slightly bad. He's going to go speak to the cooks in the chow hall. I will message you what he wants to try and do, just to keep it a surprise.
I will say we are nearing the end of this, so...
Hey, your DMs real quick. That is for Mike.
You try to do that, but it's difficult explaining to them what precisely bread is, and moreover, how bacon's supposed to taste. So that essentially goes nowhere, especially because you're a demon and the people you're talking to are all grunts and a few cackles.
They either hate me or they're scared shitless of me.
Pretty much, yeah.
Lovely. Gonna come back and try that later, but I have a feeling we're almost done here.
Yeah, almost. So, 11 days of routines like this go by. Mike, you're starting to go stir crazy. Because the more you try to understand how the engineering on this ship works, the more questions you have, and the more you just want to go home and have a nap.
Yes.
Now, huh? Was someone speaking?
Is Kevin successful in the fermentation?
It is not. It was a giant waste of time, and you wasted 2 days on it, unfortunately.
At least I did something.
Oh, yep. Coincidentally, though, you do manage to start talking to a few grunts. You find them playing a game of some sort. You decide to join in, and it appears to be some sort of dice game, some sort of gambling game. You'd have no idea how the rules work, but you join in, and they're only mildly perturbed to have you participate. So in any case, the 11th day is here. And as you're all proceeding like normal, a chime reverberates through the entire ship. Rako, you haven't received any notice at all about anything from anyone, so you assume everything's going fine. All of you, and everyone on the ship for that matter, hears a tone from unseen speakers. Mike, you assume they're in the ceiling or in the floor somewhere. You have no clue. And an alien voice sort of barks out a string of words that none of the humans understand. Those of you who are not human, though, understand it to mean that the Shadow of Intent is about to exit Slipspace, and that you have almost arrived at the Ark. In fact, you're going to arrive in 3 hours. And in fact... And in fact, when this call goes out, an addendum message to that is also played, and it goes, those of you who are not human realize it's calling for volunteers for a mission to capture a prophet. Now, Rako, as you explain what the announcement over the ship comm is saying, you realize, oh yeah, this was what the fleet master briefed us about. This is the mission that the humans are in for. So, given the announcement over the shipcom, you all proceed to the hangar bay, and proceed to a very specific portion of the hangar, as you are all ordered to report to a lich. As you all arrive there, Mike, you're essentially following along, not quite paying attention. As you all arrive in the hangar bay in that specific part of it, you all see something that looks like this. If I could find it on my desktop, hang on. This ship on the floor of the hangar. Mike, this thing is 300 feet long, maybe more, from tip to tip. A massive vessel with giant, you assume, bay doors on either side of it, as you can see there. And next to that lich are 30 people. 30, just a collection of Sanghili Ungoi, even a few Yanmeer, jackals, drones, and one brute. And there also is Fleetmaster Vidai. And as your group, you, Zapota, Ashram, Kevin, Alf, Hunter, and Mike and Rako, as you all arrive here, you see the Fleetmaster giving a speech to this group of 30 individuals. And the Fleetmaster turns to you as you arrive and says, "Ah, Rako, good, you're here. This shall be your teammates for your mission. 2/3 of these men shall man the Lich and defend its landing zones, and the other third will be the other combat team on your mission. You, your team, shall be the second combat team. And as he's saying this, his meeting with the 30 other individuals seems to have ended as they all begin filing onto the Lich and beginning to prepare. We are 3 hours out from exiting Slipspace. We don't know how much resistance we are going to face when we arrive, and we do not know the danger. So for now, this is where we part ways, the Fleet Master says to you, Rako. He slams a fist to his chest and finally says, I would suggest familiarizing yourself with the crew of this Lich and the other combat team while we wait. And he turns and leaves.
Rico understands how the jackals work. If you just promise them enough shiny things, they'll do as they're told. Buggers are loyal enough. He does not trust the brute. He would keep as far away from the brute as possible for the time being, and will probably interact with him or her or it last.
Well, good. Well, it's good news then that practically all of them have filed onto the Lich as you are left standing there while the Fleet Master is walking away. You will all notice, by the way, that the entire hangar bay is bustling, just chock full of people milling here and there, getting vehicles ready, sort of lining up in ranks and getting notifications, thank you, getting briefed by their superiors for the coming fight. Mike, Kevin, Alf, and Hunter, you realize, wow, the people on the ship prepared really, really quickly at the last minute, and it sort of impresses you that they're able to just get ready this fast in like a period of an hour, because there was not this much activity an hour ago.
Hunter,
Yep.
Hunter takes notes of this, turns to the humans, says, Fire Team Dervish, on the Lich, and it starts headed towards the Lich.
Do the rest of you follow?
Wouldn't
Rico will
Alf have
follow.
seniority?
Yes.
What was that, Al-Sharam?
No, I was just asking that wouldn't Alf have seniority both as the more veteran and as a Spartan too?
That's been explained because Hunter is both technically higher rank and has more experience leading fire teams. Alf hasn't really, so that's essentially it.
Fair enough.
Plus, Spartan ranks they essentially change on a dime depending what's needed anyway.
Yep.
So, Fire Team Dervish, you all get on the Lich.
Yeah, I was about to head that way myself.
Nice.
Oh.
Kevin does indeed follow.
Wonderful. Zapata, do you get on the Lich?
Absolutely. He
Alright.
didn't see any other hunters on the thing, so he's like, "Hey, I might as well get on too. You might need me."
So far.
Although he did take a real hard look at the brute before he got on, just not saying anything, just staring at him for a minute, just.
Yeah, you didn't get none of you got a good look at any one person in that 30-man group. But yeah. So you all get onto the Lich, and it's a tight squeeze, but you all manage to find places to sit, because there are actually seats on this thing, funnily enough. Lining the walls on the... There's an upper and lower deck, and most of the seats are on the lower deck, of course. And the way you all get onto the ship is basically just hopping up onto the bay door ramp platform thing that you can see in the image. And Zapata, when you go onto that lich, it doesn't take you long to find a pair of Umgalit Golo, who were already on the thing.
Friends. Yes.
They are both minors. Like a foot shorter than you, both of them. And you can smell that they're both fairly young. And the moment they register you, you feel... You already know that they can smell you and can surmise that you lost your bond brother. So one of them sort of trundles over to you and smacks his shield to his chest and in show of respect and sort of says, he rumbles a word of, apologies or sympathy to you in your native language, so no one else can understand it.
I just kind of do the same thing, nod my head and thanks. And I'm just there to make sure they're fine.
Right. They introduce themselves as, if I can find it here, Virone Vilo Farguta and Vasag Vilo Dovolo. They apparently... If you want to converse with them, you can.
Why not?
You learn that they had only just recently joined the Covenant military, just as the human world reach fell. You learn that, they had a bit of a time deciding which side they were on in the Great Schism, but they eventually defaulted to Sangheili because they didn't understand much anyway about what was going on. Verone, the one who walked up to you earlier, he seems excitable and, kind of a bit naive, but you think that's fine. And Vasag is a lot more soft-spoken and sort of taciturn, a bit like you, really, but it's a pleasant conversation, even if their sympathy for your lost brother does get a bit grating. And the rest of you... Yes. And the rest of you spend some time just milling about the Lich. What do you all do, or attempt to do, here?
Mike's just found in the corner and sitting down. There's, legitimately no one for him to talk to, and nothing for him to fucking do.
Hunter start coming up with a plan in his head. And once he has one, he'll gather the other assault team and perform a quick briefing once he has one.
Keeping in mind, you have no idea what precisely you're doing or where you're going at the moment. So, even if you could get them in for a briefing, you're not quite sure what you would say to them, because you're not leading the other assault team.
He's well aware.
Yeah, you're leading.
He could only call them in so they would know the plan.
What plan?
He doesn't have all of it down, but he knows that the hunter and the other hunter-like creatures are going to be the spearhead. Once they arrive, wherever they're.
As far as you're aware, the two new hunters are part of the other combat team, and Zapata is part of yours, apparently, because you're not really given strict. You weren't really given strict instructions on who is or isn't part of your.
He is missing the C structure already.
Yeah. In fact, Kevin, this entire thing has just been extremely strange. Kevin, you've been doing this for 20 years, and this is just the most bizarre way to conduct an operation you've ever seen. Not just the ex-Covenant people, but the UNSC as well. You were thrown together into this impromptu fire team with a completely lopsided composition. 2 Spartans and you and a technician that they randomly thawed out to a week ago. even considering that this is all ad hoc and last minute, this is really, really strange to you, Kevin. And you're not quite certain that this is all on the money, but that's a sneaking suspicion you'll have to think about later, really.
Kevin is 80% sure either him or the technician are going to die first.
Yep. Arsharam, what are you doing?
For what it's worth, where most of the other ex-Covenant in vehicle will avoid the Joel Honey, Ashram will simply go next to them, wherever they are, and he won't immediately talk. He'll just stand next to them and try and offer what silent comfort he can, because distracting one's focus before battle is a sin. But merely being there, that can be reassuring.
Yeah, Arsharam, you notice the entire crew of the Lich are giving this Jarahane a wide berth. And when you go up to the upper deck, up the ramp near the back of the vessel, and you go up to this Jarahane, you notice something very odd. He appears to have dull brown skin and bright yellow fur all over the body. And as you get close, you realize, oh wow, he doesn't have a lower jaw. And his eye has been sliced out, and his left leg is replaced with a prosthesis. A prosthesis that looks like he's very sloppily, very hastily applied to his body. And you quickly surmise that even if this Jarahane could talk to you, you can probably guess how he wound up here. Keeping in mind
There look to be energy sword wounds.
Yeah, keeping in mind, all of these wounds that I'm speaking of look relatively fresh, very gnarled, not energy sword wounds at all. No, they look like they were done with blades. There's a gigantic scar from nearly the back of his head, going all the way around to the front of his face and snout, cutting across his empty eye socket and down to his upper lip.
I see. Physical blades then. Yes.
When you approach him, he sort of gives you this nondescript look with his one good eye, which is a blazing red color. And he looks you over for a second or two, and then almost grumpily just gets back to what he was doing, which appears to be mounting a plasma cannon to its tripod and welding that to the deck near to one of the bay doors.
Well, barring some unfortunate circumstance, Ashram is content to just stand there and watch over the whole bay.
Indeed.
His destiny is at hand. He needs no more. The
Yes.
gods have his fate now.
All of you can sense that the wait is very nearly over, and within 2 hours, the true battle shall begin. Rako, what are you doing?
Rako takes his moment to pull out his former commanding officer's energy sword hilt and kind of rub over it a little bit with his thumbs and kind of take a moment to center himself and put it back on his hip, resolute in the fact that he will either die in this holy place and doing his mission, or he will return with one hell of a war story and maybe a few new scars.
Yes. As you're doing that, though, you feel something sort of knock into you behind your back, and as you turn around, you see an Ungoi. What appears to be an Ungoi. Where did I write this down? I had this in my notes. Where the hell is this? An Ungoi ranger, actually wearing a ranger harness. And he sort of, as you turn around and look down at him, the Ungoi sort of looks up at you and says, "Sorry," and sort of begins to trundle past toward the cockpit. But then the young guy stops, turns around, looks at you, and says, "Hey, are you the guy who's He sort of stalls and scratches his head, although he doesn't quite manage to scratch his head because he's wearing a full-headed helmet. And he sort of, "You're the guy who's the one keeping an eye on the humies, right?"
I am the liaison, yes.
The Angoi sort of taps his maraca-like fist to his chest twice and says, I'm the weapons officer on this here lich. The pilot's Sangheili Ranger. You probably won't talk to him though. I'm gonna be the guy you'll be talking to when you're on the ground. So, yeah. And he sort of awkwardly stares at you, and then just begins walking back toward the cockpit.
I gotta go. I gotta start dinner.
That is fine, because with that, we are done.
Hey.
And the king from the ass.
Yes, as you're all preparing on this lich, we end the session here.
All right.
I look forward to Hunter's briefing next time.
I look forward to dying.
I look forward to bashing some brutes.
My job is to try to keep
Rabble.
the humans and his own little team alive, or at least not injured as much as possible.
Well,
Yeah.
have fun.
Good luck.
And the recording's over.
Yeah,
I take it.
turning off now.